2010 Prize for Journalism goes to Peter Hitchens.
Well, that must have been difficult for you. So a long time ago, someone almost as unlovable as I am, a man called Ronald Storrs, was put in charge of Jerusalem on behalf of the British Empire. And he said, after Jerusalem, there can be no promotion. I have to say, as someone who has, for all his writing life, revered this man, after this prize, there can be no promotion. Thank you very much indeed.
Richard Horton, the winner of last year's blog prize. All the blog prizes.
Hello, my name is Richard Horton. I used to write a blog. Some of you may know that didn't particularly end well. However, I'd like to thank Una for her help and assistance in the committee for deciding the blogging prize. Before I go into talking about the various entrants, I'd just like to say I think it's probably no coincidence that as Labour has gone into opposition, our long list and short list has reflected the fact that there's been a growth of organic voices from the left. I think that has been interesting. Anyway, the first blog I want to talk about is Hopi Sen. It's been shortlisted now for both years. He's possibly becoming the Stanley Kubrick of British political blogging. He is already good, but he raised the bar this year. He added a self-deprecating humour, an analysis that brought us posts on what is the British moment, and if I can quote from his wit, the rules for a happy if obscure political life. Rule 1 was never attend a breakfast meeting. They can do no good. Rule 4, in political functions, look for the least styled and coiffured people there. They will be the nicest and friendliest people in the room. Okay. The second blog through was Jack of Kent, Alan Green. Outstanding. Hello. Outstanding. From the poignant outrage of making tea for Alan Turing on the destruction of a great man and a great life, to his consideration of the case author of a blog versus Times newspapers, we felt that Alan was an articulate and increasingly authoritative voice in those areas where, as they say, bad cases make bad law. If I've got any of you wrong, I think I get, but we'll have a flame war afterwards if I get it wrong. Laurie Penny, Penny Red and others, over there, who could not warm to the description of Kirsty's homemade house as a cross between a nuclear strike advice handbook and the Bowden catalogue? Whether railing against feminism redefined as a facility with cupcakes, to threatening to set fire to a bra whilst in it, and run shouting through Hackney saying, "How did we come to this?" She was an entertaining and informative voice over a lot of different issues. She also captures the moment which I've also lived, where shouty inappropriate bloke takes over the demo and everybody dies a little bit inside. Madam Meow, Anna Chen. Okay, here as well. Another organically grown voice of the left. Every post was entertaining and informative, from the impact of the X Factor on Chinese diplomacy to the inner voice of Tony Blair as he looks at the shaving mirror every morning. And what must that be like? This is a blog that doesn't do the obvious. It doesn't do big news, big issues. It follows the writer's own agenda. It goes outside the commentary at Horde, and we felt it was all the better for that. Tim Marshall, Foreign Matters. This is the only real mainstream media voice that made it onto the shortlist. Tim Marshall points up the artifice that is used to shape the views that we get of the world that we don't have for ourselves. My feeling was that if I was paying for my own foreign correspondent, that's the stuff I'd want sending back, the stuff that's in Tim's blog. It's a gentle prod at the received wisdoms on who are the good guys and how bad the bad guys are. And I agree with him, go forth and boycott orange peacoat tea. Finally, on the list, Winston Smith. Surely not another anonymous public servant with dark tales of woe from the front line. Winston Smith, Orwell Prize. As the irony meter pegged on maximum, we thought, well, was there too much going on there? Is there so much baggage? The writing would need to be remarkable for it to get past that. And it is. Winston shines a light into the dark recesses of social care. If you try reading the post Driving Miss Crazy, or Just Another Burden on the Welfare State, without realising that what we have right now, for all the funding, the flowcharts and the figures, isn't really working all that well. And we may be making things worse. It was an uncomfortable read, but it did ring true to the judge's own experiences of life. So there it is, a list of 6 very fine bodies of work. Una and I agreed on that list, and we think it represents some interesting developments in political blogging. Without any further ado, the winner of the blogging prize is Winston Smith. And he's not here either. This is Dan Collins from Monday Books, yes, who's come to accept the prize on Winston's behalf. If I could. Yeah, get us both in shots. Okay, thank you. Right, of course.
Obviously, I'm not Winston Smith. I'm a friend of his. He couldn't be here tonight, so I'm accepting the award on his behalf. I know he'd be very pleased and thoroughly shocked. I'm going to be phoning him shortly to tell him, and he'll be amazed and delighted. So thank you on his behalf.
Francine and books. Ta-da!
Thank you very much. I'm conscious you've all been standing a long time, but I do want to talk about these 5 shortlisted books, each of which you should really read if you've not read so far. What impressed my fellow judges, Jonathan Heawood of Penn and Andrew Holgate of the Sunday Times, and I, was that each of these books delivered so much more than even the most enthusiastic publisher's blurb could promise. And more than the literary merit, the art which Orwell so valued, they had a scope and success in engaging with some of the really important political issues of the moment. So, in alphabetical order, although whether we're talking about alphabetical order of title or name, we have Rebel Land, first of all, by Christopher de Bellaigue, subtitle Among Turkey's Forgotten Peoples. This is a journey to eastern Turkey, and particularly to the town of Varto, where de Bellaigue lived, and it becomes an examination of the way crises and ethnic wars develop when people care deeply for land and also fight to avoid extinction. He makes the investigation both personal and layered, and he doesn't shrink from obstructions thrown up either by bureaucrats or indeed by taciturn witnesses. And he dares to show both the attractive and repellent sides of the participants in these bitter struggles between Turks, Kurds, and Armenians. It's a region where so much of the past is blurred by denial, and this book gives us a much greater understanding. Elegy for Easterly by Bettina Gappa. Short stories, it actually struck us, can be a very, very effective mode of political writing, carving out a very memorable facet of a particular situation or place, and in this case, it's Zimbabwe, and making from these individual glimpses a kind of coherent whole. Bettina Gappa's very elegantly crafted and moving stories reveal the human cost of political events, whether it's the widow of a minister watching other people at her husband's graveside, or a coffin maker who is surprisingly busy because of the high death rate, who is also a dance champion. Each of these stories conveys with a great wry humour the tragedy and absurdity of life which is dominated by inflation, AIDS, and a brutal government control. Keeper, Living with Nancy, and A Journey into Alzheimer's by Andrea Gillis. In this account of caring for her mother-in-law, Andrea Gillis avoids all the pitfalls of a misery memoir.